Great.
Good. I'm glad to be here with you, sir.
Yes.
Always fun. Always a pleasure.
We like to talk about guitar.
I know you do. And we like to listen. Hey, play your guitar. Are you using that? Are you set up the same way we were last week on, what was it, Friday?
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, it should be. Oh, hold on.
Nope. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm set up the same way. It's so weird how that does that. Hey, Mike. Hello, everybody. Hey, Viv.
Hey, Viv from NYC. That's a nice time to be in NYC. I kind of wish I was there.
Yeah.
Hi, Steve and Dan. Cool. Guys, thanks for joining us. I'm going to grab my coffee. And I'm
going to jam a little bit. See if it sounds okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Kind of okay.
Yeah.
I mean, not your playing. Just as it's coming through, it's like it's doing that compression thing a little bit again that we were talking about on Friday.
Yeah, and that's off. So, Yep.
Well, maybe it's just me, guys.
I don't know.
What about Steve?
Good. Sounds great.
Can you guys hear him? Sounds great. Okay, sounds fantastic. Fantastic. Then it may just be me. I need coffee. Maybe that's the problem. I'll be back.
Hey, everybody. Bertie, Brian, Thomas, Lorraine, Paul, Kevin, T. Stephen Bell is back. Stephen, Allison, Mario. Awesome. We have a lot of people
here.
in
Germany. Awesome. Sounds great. Let's rock and roll. All right, guys. Eugene, RCA, Danny, Jeff, Craig, Fran, Shane, Eric, Chris, Honey Badger.
Honey Badger don't play.
Yeah. Deb Jones, Stephen Gilbert, Mandy. Oh, I got it. So Facebook and YouTube, we can see all of it at once here.
This is
super.
Right. Yep.
This is super cool.
Yep.
Okay, guys. Well, welcome. While everybody's still piling in, Craig Grant from California. Guys, thank you for being here. This is so cool. Steve and I get, it's like one of the most fun things we actually get to do around here. It's just hang out with you dudes and do something live. We are actually live. This is, well, it depends on when you're watching this, but right now it's absolutely live.
If you're watching now.
If you're watching now.
A relative term, but.
Yeah, that is relative, isn't it? So thanks for being here today. We are, I'm Dan Denley, founder of Guitar Zoom. This is my good friend, Steve Stine, guitarist extraordinaire and teacher and friend. So we're going to be talking today, or Steve is, about creative soloing. Oh, Simon Hughes says, go ahead, Steve, can you read that?
Oh, yeah, I just put it up on the screen. Yep.
Oh.
Sorry. Here it is again. Loving your Modern Blue course right now, it says.
Awesome. Is that the masterclass? Modern Blues masterclass?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yes. Masterclass. All right, dudes.
He says, so you're saying you're live.
So you're saying there's a chance. Actually, we are. We are live. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you. From East Tennessee, is that Chattanooga over there or Knoxville? Just curious, because I'm from Tennessee. I purchased the course today. Thank you. And by the way, okay, I want to see who that is. Eddie Raines. Cool. See, I can see their names on this page, but not on the other. It just says Facebook user. So weird. Oh, no, it still does say Facebook user. Oh, whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm stumbling over my words here. We're going to be jumping right into creative soloing today. Creative soloing is and how it relates to essential techniques. And we're going to be talking about all the different techniques that you need to be able to execute for creative soloing. if you want to learn that, keep watching. Keep hanging in here with us. We're going to go for maybe about 45 minutes to an hour. If you want to learn this stuff that we're going to be talking about today even faster and in a step-by-step way, check out Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques by Steve Stine. All new, completely brand new, never before seen. And it's available right now at guitar-zoom.com. And a whole lot of people have already signed up for this course. By the way, guys, if you already signed up for the course on Essential Techniques, tell us what you wanted to get out of it. Like, what's the number one thing that you wanted to learn from this course? And that would be super cool. And if you decide to order it today, we've got several fast action bonuses for folks who order during the live event thing. You could just go to Guitar Zoom, click on the big banner that says Essential Techniques. It'll take you straight to the page. And there's some cool fast action bonuses there, including some actual courses that you get when you order through. See, the timer says, it says 7 days, but actually on our big team meeting this morning, they were thinking about closing this early because there's been a whole lot of people signed up. We don't want to get overloaded. So it may actually be a little bit earlier than that. So anyway, guys, if you're interested in Essential Techniques, go check out Steve's course, Essential Techniques by Steve Stine, available at guitarzoom.com. Creative soloing. Steve.
Yes.
Where should we go as far as a starting point, sir? Oh, well, and wait. And
okay.
Make sure you guys... Sorry, I'm really having a hard time getting going here, dude. Make sure that you guys put your questions wherever you are. Facebook, YouTube. We're going to have a rapid fire question and answer session a little bit later, about at the halfway point. We'll try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. The only one favor that Steve and I would like to ask of you is please keep your questions related to creative soloing or just soloing in general. And don't stray about, everything, and because that helps keep us on track and not get off track, and that's helpful to everybody. So questions, please post them and let us know what you'd like to learn about soloing. Today we're talking about creative soloing from Essential Techniques. Take it away, sir.
Okay. All right. So the main thing is that when people go to solo, oftentimes when they first start learning how to do this, they have issues with every time they solo, everything sounds exactly the same, or it always just sounds like they're playing scales. So what I thought I would do is, again, my information, what I thought I would do is kind of give you some ideas of things to think about, and then use a backing track here to sort of show examples of what I'm talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about, and I'm not going to go deep into this, but I am going to mention this first, is guitar tone. Your guitar tone should match the situation that you find yourself in. If you've got a really, really, really heavy tone, but you're trying to play over a ballad or something like that, or vice versa, I'm not saying it has to be exact blues. I've never been the kind of player that goes out and buys gear to try and match different things. I just play what I like, and if it feels good, I'm good. But I still try and dial in something that kind of matches the musical situation that I find myself in, because it's easier to feel kind of in the pocket of the music. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what I call fretboard freedom. And, we have, for instance, what's the course we have, Dan, that fretboard mastery or ultimate fretboard connection or whatever it is?
Yeah, we actually have two fretboard courses, guys. One's called Unlocking the Fretboard Connection, which has been one of the top sellers that we've ever had for the past 3 years or something like that. And then we also have Fretboard Mastery. Yeah. But both of those are available. You can just click on the shop button at GuitarZoom and check that out if you're interested. Unlocking the Fretboard Connection. Right. Is that's what that's about.
Okay. So basically, the more you are limited to your ability to move around the fretboard, obviously the less creative you're going to be able to be. That doesn't mean you can't make amazing music with just one position or something like that. But I'm telling you, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest revelations of my playing was when I really started learning how to maneuver around the whole fretboard. And I always talk to people about when you start really getting comfortable with being able to do this, then you start thinking about your fretboard in different sectors. Like down here, if I was going to play, it's lower. It's almost like I'm kind of talking quietly to somebody. When I move into, Now it's like I'm talking loudly. I'm speaking more, adamantly at them. When I move up here, now it's like I'm singing. Like this is a singing voice. And when I move up here, it's like I'm yelling at somebody, right? So it's nice to think about it that way, because when you approach a solo, the first thing you have to do, and we're going to talk about analysis a bit here too, but you've got to decide how you want to start this solo, because I've always thought of solos as being like the point of the solo is to make a connection to the music. It's not, I remember a kid, when I used to teach lessons, private lessons, I would always ask them, okay, so explain to me what soloing means to you, when they started learning how to do that. And I had a student that once said, to show off. That was his answer. And
nice. What else is it for?
Yeah, maybe that's possible, but really it's singing, but on the guitar, right? It's us doing our thing without our voice. We're doing it with the guitar. And to be able to do that, we've got to be able to maneuver around the fretboard. So there's a few things I want you to think about. So one is fretboard freedom. The more you understand how to get around the fretboard, the better off you are. Now, we talked about this in the last few sessions, how understanding some theory, understanding technique, and expanding on your creativity, these are three different buckets, if you will, that are really, really important for every guitar player to try and mess with. So that's one thing is fretboard freedom, okay?
Nice.
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move in and we're going to start talking about assessing a situation. Like we're going to listen to this backing track that I have, and then we're going to try and figure out like what would you do, and then what would I do, right? Now again, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying I have learned how to respond to music far better than I did, 30 years ago. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to listen to this a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is move up a little bit to the drums so we can hear the groove. So what I want to do at this point is I want to start figuring out, well, number one, before I worry about the key, I want to figure out the groove. I want to know the tempo, and I want to know the groove. Now the groove, whenever you play over something, it might be in 4/4 time or whatever it might be, but the subdivision of those is going to feel either like a straight beat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can go back to the first live session that Dan and I did, and I talk about this, or it's going to feel like a swing groove, okay? Dot, 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 like a group of 3, okay? So as I'm listening to this, is it going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, or is it going... See, if I move back, these are my beats, but the groove is groups of 3. It's a swing feel. And I want to know that because when I go to start playing over the top of this, once I figure out the key and that sort of thing, that's what I'm going to focus in on with the rhythms that I play. Now, you've probably heard me talk about meandering and things like that, and I do all of that kind of practice when I work with a musical situation that I find myself in. So this song, the 2 chords that we're hearing here in the beginning are E minor and A. And again, we're not getting into ear training, but those are my 2 chords. So with E minor and A, the first thing I'd have to do is figure out, well, what key or what scale could I use? And I'm asking you out there to tell me. If I had E minor and I had A major, what key am I in? And I want to see what you say, okay?
Good question. So the question is, what key are you in if your chords that you're given are E minor and A major?
Right. Now while you're answering, I'm going to keep going here and just talk a little bit, okay? So if I have E minor and A, what I do know is that I'm going to try E minor pentatonic, because if I don't know what key it's in, at the very least, I'm going to try E minor pentatonic, okay? So as this starts... So I could use E minor pentatonic. Now, this is where the separation, when we talk about music theory, this is where theory might become really important for you. Because if you look at E minor and A and you go, well, I'm not really sure what key that could come from, right? That's okay. If you don't know, then pentatonic is always a great answer because pentatonic is going to fit just about every single time. Okay? If you know your theory, then if you look at the E minor and you look at the A major and go, okay, well, if we had E minor and A major, what key would we be in? Well, we could be in the key of D major because the E minor would be the 2 chord, right? And the A would be the 5 chord in the key of D major. So that's what I would go with. Okay? So that means that I can still play E minor pentatonic. And again, I don't want to get too far off on a theory tangent, but just understand that I need to set this up. I've already decided what my groove is going to be. Now I decide what scale I'm going to use. You see? So if all I know is E minor pentatonic, at the very least, I need to be able to go in there and start making some sort of rhythmic connection because I've already figured out that I've got dun, 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 da, 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 that sort of thing. Okay? So also G, well, G, we would get A minor. So G won't work because we'd get A minor in the key of G. Okay? So somebody had mentioned G. We don't have A minor. We have A major. Okay? And AJ says, please explain using modes. That's a whole other 3-hour conversation to have that we don't have time for in this one because we're talking about creative soloing. But modes is a whole thing to that's worth learning eventually as well. But so if we don't know what we're doing, we can grab E minor pentatonic and use that rhythm. In order to be able to make that musical connection rhythmically, I've got to have the availability technically to be able to pick at whatever speed, right? Now, I don't have to play the triplets that fast, but that's what the triplets are. This song, the triplets are that fast, right? And I don't really have any other option other than just going to the quarter note. I can go to the... Now, again, I'm just meandering right now, but so those are my options rhythmically of what to do over the top of this, okay, that fit that rhythm. Now, oftentimes when I solo, I like to do free time stuff too, and we'll get to that in just a little bit, okay? But those are my options. So technically, I've got to be able to make that connection. So the next step, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at those chords, again, E minor and A major. Now, if we didn't know modes, we don't know anything about that, at the very least, what I can do is over the E minor, I could go to E minor, pentatonic. Over the A major, you know what I could do? I could go A major pentatonic. Okay, so let's try that a little bit. Just see what we get. I'm going to go A major. E minor. Major. I'm going to do it up here this time. E minor. Becomes A major. So again, at least there's some element of musical separation between these chords. I'm not simply moving up and down inside E minor pentatonic the whole time, but I'm actually trying to make some sort of connection to the A chord.
Sounds great, dude.
Okay.
I loved it. And you frame that up sometimes as chord chasing, right?
That's right. That's right. So at this point, because I'm not sure of what mode or whatever it might be, I'm just trying to go, okay, well, E minor pentatonic over the E, A major pentatonic over the A, right? But when I get in there, and again, we're going to talk about the diatonic scale as well, but at the very least, when I get in there, I need to make this musical connection by thinking about the rhythm. And then there's 2 other things I need to start thinking about. The next one is phrasing. Now, phrasing is kind of like when you listen to someone talk or you listen to someone sing or you're reading a book or something like that, it's the length of the sentences. And those sentences, the way that they end, right? Sometimes they end, with a period or a comma or an exclamation mark or something like that. You need to try and think about not making everything sound exactly the same length and the same size and all that sort of thing, right? If you think about the whispering, talking, singing thing I talked about, again, if you're limited by your fretboard, there's only so much of that you can do. The more you learn about your fretboard, the more different places that you can go. But with whatever we have at this point, at least what we can do is we can get in there and start trying to think about phrases. So let me go back just a little bit with this. You see, instead of just going da 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 the whole time, I start thinking about trying to break my playing into different sizes. Play a little bit, play a little bit more, play a little bit less, play a little bit faster, play a little bit slower, whatever it might be. But thinking about that variety. And the second thing that really goes hand in hand with that is that over the E, in the most basic of form right now, I'm trying to target the note E. And over the A, I'm going to target, guess what? The note A. So again, it gets way deeper than that, but this is a great place to just begin. And the way you have to do this when you start learning how to play more creatively is you've got to slow down your thought process. Because if you're like, well, how all these different places on my fretboard and all these different licks that I've learned, all that's great. But when the music starts, you can't be thinking about all of those things. You have to learn that there's a level of automation that has to be able to kick in. This is why when I talk about these buckets to practice, learning to practice the creative bucket is really important. Because if all we do is practice licks and scales and theory and whatever it might be, just because we know how to do these things doesn't mean we can apply them in a creative aspect. So we've got to be able to spend a little time, again, slow down. It doesn't have to be fast. Don't even think fast at all. Just think, okay, I'm going to try and play E minor pentatonic over E minor and A major pentatonic over the A major. I'm going to try and play in a rhythmic sense that fits. And if I don't understand the rhythm, I shouldn't even be worrying about this. I should just go back and practice my rhythm over it, right? But once I've got that dialed in a little bit, and again, we're going a little fast because we only have so much time here, then what I want to do is I want to start thinking about phrasing and chord connection. And my chord connection at this point is the E over the E minor and the A over the A minor. And it begins to sound like music.
It's awesome, man. Sounds great.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Just tell us in the comments.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying this so far?
Because again, we get, and I'm not saying that learning your theory and obviously learning all of your mode stuff and all those things are very important, but we often think that just because we're going to learn a new scale, it's going to give us all of this musical freedom. And that doesn't necessarily equate unless you can figure out how to actually use it. Because the problem that I see a lot of times is, let's say we're playing E Dorian, right? So we're in E Dorian here. If you know your E Dorian. So we got our major sixth. So we learn how to play that scale in whatever capacity you're learning it. Well, the problem is when you learn it a lot of times, your solos sound like this. I'm still not really saying anything. I have more notes, but it doesn't really mean I'm saying anything. I still have to make a phrasing and pitch connection to the song, right? It's just that if I know more about my theory and I know, for instance, E Dorian, which is essentially what I'm playing here in the key of D major, I can do what I was showing you before with E minor and A major. I can do it in the same spot. So I can take E minor. Let me move this back a little bit. So here comes E minor. And here comes my A. I can do it all in the same spot if I understand more about what I'm doing. Pink Floyd-ish stuff there, because this is very Pink Floyd sounding. But anyway, if that kind of makes sense. So what you want to do is you want to understand that your power in soloing begins with understanding your fretboard and having the technical ability to be able to move through your fretboard.
Love it.
Then you've got to have the logic to be able to listen to the musical situation you have and go, what is the rhythm telling me? And what key am I in? What are my options in terms of my responsiveness to these chords that are happening? Then you've got to go in. The third step is you got to move in on a creative level and start trying to think, well, how do I phrase and how do I make a connection to these chords as they're happening? If I'm just playing up and down the scale over and over and over, again, I can get lucky sometimes and it'll sound really good, but it's a ratio that I don't really want to mess with, because sometimes when I play, it's not going to sound very good. If I try and really make that musical connection, I'm going to have more of an opportunity for it to sound like music. Maybe it's not as flashy as I want or whatever. Those are all things that I can work on, but at the very least, I'm making music that sounds like it's music. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, dude, this is amazing stuff. Guys, what do you think so far? Just let us know in the comments how this is resonating with you, if you're enjoying this, if you've had an aha moment so far, that would be super cool. Guys, if you're just joining us, we're about halfway through this creative soloing session here with my good friend Steve Stine. I'm Dan Denley, the founder of Guitar Zoom, and everything we're talking about today, the creative soloing, comes from Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques by Steve Stine. And it's available right now with some pretty cool fast action bonuses and at an introductory sales price at guitarzoom.com. A whole lot of folks have already signed up for that. And if you have, please come back and tell us how you're enjoying the course and how what's something that you've already gotten out of it. What have you learned? What aha moments have you had? If you want to learn about creative soloing, thanks for joining us. Please tune in and stay for the whole time. We're going to be here for about another 20 or 30 minutes, and we're going to have an awesome question and answer session. And if you'd like to learn essential techniques really quickly in a step-by-step way, go check out Steve's course. It's called Essential Techniques by Steve Stine, available at guitarzoom.com right now at the sales price. Guys, Steve, this is incredible stuff. We talked about assessing the situation. When we started out, we talked about fretboard freedom, connecting all the different scales, figure out like where you are on the fretboard, what you can do in your capacity and what you currently know, assessing the situation, actually sitting down and listening to the song, getting an idea of the groove. You know, is it a straight rhythm or is it a swing rhythm? Then getting an idea of like, what chords do I have in this thing? Well, we had E minor and A major in this, and we figured out that we could use the D major scale. We could use E minor pentatonic. We could use A major pentatonic. So, and then we talked about phrasing, lengths of these kind of sentences versus just having your solo sound like a scale. And then targeting the root note of the chord is always a good idea as you're moving through your solo. All this stuff is awesome. We're about halfway through here, Steve. Do you want to take some questions now, or do you want to plow forward? Because I know you always have a ton of stuff, which is great.
I'm just going to throw a couple more things out there, and then we can start taking some questions.
Cool. Okay.
So I did see a couple things about in terms of, do you always have to go to the root? And the answer is no. Okay. But it's a great place to start. Like if you're not trying to emphasize anything, learning to go to E over an E minor and A over an A major, or whatever your situation might be, is a great place to begin. Because then people always go, well, what about the third and the fifth and the whatever? Those are all great. But if you can't do one, you can't do three, right? So you got to learn to do one. So that's the thing is always remember that when you get over to this creative bucket and you start exploring the creative side of things, because I saw people asking about, well, how do you learn how to phrase and things? Guitar playing in this realm, this creative realm, is a subjective thing. There isn't any absolute rules to this, right? Other than maybe, playing in the right key and some logical things like that. But even those things can be bent to a certain degree. But the thing you have to understand is when you're in a rudimentary bucket, when you're in a theory bucket, and a theory bucket is explaining to you what mixolydian is, there's no right or there's no black or white. It is what it is, right? There's no bending the rule on it. A mixolydian mode is what it is. When you're practicing a particular kind of exercise, it's for some sort of development. We talked about this, I think, in the first or second session, that when you practice a technique, you're practicing it to build strength and speed and stamina and confidence and all these sorts of things. All of this stuff in these two buckets gets dumped in the third bucket, which is the creative bucket. And the thing about the creative bucket is when you get into the creative bucket, if your brain is still tethered to the first bucket, which is the rudimentary techniques bucket or the theory bucket or whatever it might be, you're not experiencing a creative element because you're thinking about trying to play that lick or you're thinking about trying to play whatever. The key to the creative bucket is you've got to learn to listen more than play. You've got to learn to respond to what you're listening to more than thinking about everything. Because if you're thinking about everything, you're not responding, you're thinking. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So when I'm hearing this, again, I've been doing this a long time, but when I listen to this, I understand that I'm gonna maneuver around the fretboard and I'm gonna make connections, sometimes on the root, sometimes on the third, sometimes on the fifth, sometimes I'll play an arpeggio, sometimes I'll do whatever. But I'm not thinking I got to get an arpeggio in here because my teacher wants me to play 3 arpeggios every solo, right? I'm not thinking about it that way. I'm not thinking, oh, I got to play Dorian because pentatonic is for beginners and I can't play pentatonic. Like I don't have those thoughts. I just go to play. Like if I listen, here comes that A. More energy. So I'm going to go into that singing area. Little blues. Again, I'm not going to spend the whole time doing this, but you get the idea. So as I'm phrasing, I'm thinking about, oh, I should throw some blues in here. That would be kind of cool. It sounds like something different, right? Or I'll do some single string stuff. I might be playing. To get some sounds like that or whatever it might be. So, hopefully that helps you a little bit in understanding the process. Like, if you need to go back and watch this, of course, it'll be, on YouTube and on Facebook and all kinds of places you can rewatch it. But when you got some time, I would love for you to write down some things and go, okay, so I need to assess my situation, right? I need to study my fretboard a bit more. I need more, practice on my technique. Because if I can't execute what I want to do with my fingers, even if my brain's telling me what to do, but my hands won't do it, that's something I need to work on. That's what, like this course, that's what techniques, essential techniques is all about, is developing those things so you use them when you choose to, when you want to use them. Because the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to this, is be careful of complacency. Okay? You need to understand your music and your musical situations. You need to keep developing your creativity. You need to develop yourself outside your comfort zone. That doesn't mean today you're comfortable, don't be comfortable. It means once you establish comfort in whatever you're trying to do, you got to crack the shell. You got to crack that eggshell and move forward. That's how you keep getting better. Otherwise, every time you grab the guitar and play over any style of music or any jam, it sounds exactly the same. And I see this a lot with pentatonic. Like people will learn an element of pentatonic and then they'll go, oh my God, the rest of it just seems insurmountable. It seems like way too much work. So I'm just going to live here and I'm never going to leave this eggshell that I've built for myself. I'm not saying that that's bad. I mean, if you're happy in it, you never go, I want more, then you're okay. But if you want more, you got to crack that shell and go, okay, well, I need to add more. I need to step outside my comfort zone and maybe just add one new note. Take my pentatonic and just learn to add, a ninth in there or something like that. Just something, or a new way of doing my bending, right? I always do the same bends, but I need to learn how to, like there's so many great ways of being able to manipulate the fretboard with bends and vibrato, and I just love that kind of stuff when I play. That's where that musicality comes from, is all in all that movement, the what I call vocal tools, which I talk about in the course too, but bending and vibrato and sliding and hammer-ons and pull-offs and, being able to take an exotic note that doesn't fit in your scale and throw it in and make it sound really cool, even though there's lots of really great ways that you can manipulate. It's not just about playing up and down a scale, you see?
Dude, that sounds so amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
I would like to, since you're talking about all of these different bends and you're just showing all those different techniques, could I share my screen and share your mind map with them?
Sure.
So guys, this is actually, I'm going to show you a behind the scenes look at how Steve Stine's mind works when he sits down and creates a course for you. He doesn't start by like flipping on the camera. He starts by a whole lot of drawing on his knowledge, his experience, and all of his teaching that he's done over the past 30 years. And this is what he does. The first thing he does is he sits down and creates these huge mind maps and just dumps everything out of his brain that he wants to teach you. And I want to share this with you, kind of a behind the scenes look at how Steve creates things. I'm just going to click share here. Hopefully it'll work. Let me know, Steve, if you can see this.
Yep, I can see it.
Everybody see the mind map? Just say like yes or something in the comments. Would be super cool. So this is the way Steve's brain works. He uses this mind mapping software and then just puts everything that he wants to teach you on here. Now we've already done 3 of these workshops, and we're actually gonna. This is the 4th one. I think we have 1 more to go. Guys, don't worry if you missed any of the previous ones. They're about an hour long. Super cool content. It's going to be available for you on the YouTube playlist as well as the Facebook playlist. So on YouTube, just go to Guitar Zoom and then click playlist, and then it'll be there called Essential Techniques. Same thing on Facebook. It'll be there for you in a nice, tidy playlist on Essential Techniques. But this is the actual course content. This is what you're going to learn in the Essential Techniques course. So the very first thing that Steve talks about in this course is guitar setup and amp. After you get the introduction, you got your guitar set up and your amp set up. Then you jump straight into chords, open chords, power chords, bar chords. And you can see how each of these things, like for strumming, we did an entire workshop on strumming. All these different techniques of scratching and figuring out. Actually, scratching is a great way to figure out if it's a straight or a swing rhythm. You can just kind of tell before you even try to play any chords or anything.
Can you zoom in a little bit because it's fuzzy?
Is it?
Yeah. There you go. Oh. Zoom in. There you go.
Like this?
Yep.
Okay, really zoom in. All right, so, and look, I'm not going to bore everybody to death with every single topic, but you can tell that there's a whole lot of stuff in here. And this is just on strumming. I'm going to bounce down quickly and show you. Let's go over here. Picking hand development. Let me blow this up. So picking hand development, picking control, down picking, palm muting, holding the guitar properly. I mean, look how deep this goes. Elbow, wrist, fingers, listen and feel. I'm going to jump over to, there's the exercises, the 30-second, 60-second, 3-minute exercises for your picking control. It also goes into fretting hand, legato techniques, and I'm going to jump over to the stuff that we're talking about today, which is all of the different soloing techniques. So, for example, Steve was just talking about the bends. Take a look at he's got vibrato, a whole section just on vibrato right here, guys. But then look at the section just on bends, whole, half, 3-fret, blues, unison, harmony, pre-bend or ghost bends, double pumps, siren bends, bend slides, bend pull-offs. Just a ton of amazing techniques that you need to know. Hand synchronization, slides. Take a look at the slides. Airplane, dedicated, back and forth, sliding to change positions. And of course, there's a whole lot more in here. And of course, arpeggios, man, this thing is huge. In fact, it's 6.5 hours long, guys. This whole entire thing is 6.5 hours long. It's called Essential Techniques. And you can get it right now at guitarzoom.com. Thank you so much, Steve, for making that for everybody to learn from. And guys, if you went ahead and got the course, let us know what you're currently working on. One thing I did want to point out, we've gotten this question a lot, is do you have to go through this entire thing straight to, from the beginning to the end, or can you bounce around, Steve?
Oh, no, you can bounce around. That's the whole thing. It's just, the whole point of it was, for instance, it's not about scales and modes. So we have courses that talk about scales and modes. It's about technique. It's about grabbing your guitar, putting the pick or putting your fingers on there and playing. That's what it's about. So, it's not about, I didn't get sidetracked into theory or didn't get sidetracked into modes. Those are their own things. This is strictly about technique. So if you want to learn more about picking, whether it's hybrid picking or speed picking or alternate picking or down picking or palm muting or whatever it might be, that's the whole thing. So
awesome. Okay. So Steve, we've got about maybe 15, 20 minutes left here. Where do you want to go from here, buddy?
Well, let's go ahead and do some Q&A.
Okay. Cool. So guys, let's talk. I've got I have a whole lot of questions here, guys. Woo! All right. Where do we start? All right. Let's do this. We've got oh man, I'm trying to pick an easy one, Steve. A lot of these things are really deep.
Yeah, and I'll just do the best. Just throw them out there.
Okay. Nagato says he says, I'm way too comfortable with my major and minor pentatonic scales when I solo. And I guess the question is, how do you kind of get out of being stuck in major and minor pentatonic? Well,
the easiest way that I found, as opposed to doing a hard turn to modes, is to do what I call pentatonic expansions. And I can't remember if these are in Fretboard Mastery, or I know it's in one of those, but I do what's called pentatonic expansions, which is subtly training your brain to take a minor pentatonic or a major pentatonic or whatever and add notes to it. Mm-hmm. And you're adding ultimately become modal anyway. They become diatonic, I should say. But it's a subtle way to move into it. So when you're playing, if you're doing like A minor pentatonic, you can take that A minor pentatonic and just learn how to add in one note, like the ninth, and immediately you hear it sounds less pentatonic, because a pentatonic scale always has its smallest interval is a whole step. So everything always sounds like you're jumping. It's very big. When you learn to add in a simple note, like just one note, and it's called the ninth, but again, without getting all hung up on what is a ninth and the history of the ninth, you just learn how to use it. And you just practice something like that, very small for a while, and notice how it could change the way that you approach your solos, right? When you go to solo, when you play pentatonic, Everything's going to have that kind of pentatonic bluesy sound to it. When you added one note, you get a lot of different options out of that. So that's an easy way of moving out of your pentatonics, is simply learning how to expand them subtly by adding in notes. And then once you've added in those notes, then if you start studying modes or something like that, you're going to go, oh, well, that makes sense. I've already been doing that.
Love it. Matthew Hudson says, if, say, I'm using the key of C, would I be correct in soloing using the relative A minor?
Say that one more time.
If I'm using the key of C,
Yep.
would it be okay to use relative minor, A minor?
Well, they are one and the same. So you're technically already using A minor when you're using C. The difference is always emphasis, right? If you're in C major, your emphasis is C major, the chord C major in some capacity, right? If you're in A minor, your emphasis is over the A. That's why oftentimes when you're playing in a song, you might have a C chord and an A minor chord in there. You're not switching keys, right? It's all one and the same. It's just, if you think about it as, when I'm on the C chord, I'm emphasizing an element of C, and when I'm on A minor, I'm going to use those same notes. I'm just going to emphasize some element of A minor.
Right.
And that some element could be a root or a third or a fifth or a seventh or a ninth. I mean, it could be all kinds of different things. But
Buffalo Bill says, when should I do release bends?
when should you do release bends? I'm not
That's
sure
the
what
question.
you mean by a release bend. I'm not sure what you mean. If you can elaborate on that, I could maybe answer that a little bit better.
Let's see. Travis Ryan says, hey, Steve, armed with all the techniques and abilities, where does the core spontaneous idea or tune come from in your head?
Usually, for me, it comes from whatever mood I'm in or whatever music I'm listening to at that point. So that stuff inspires me huge to write, or my soloing style or whatever is whatever kind of I'm in the mood of at that point.
Gotcha. Cool. Let's see. Can you jump in on the E minor or A major anywhere on the fretboard where E minor or A major are found to get different feels?
Well, if you move around the fretboard, it's not necessarily going to change the feel. It's just going to change the register, right? But you could jump in. I mean, for instance, if you knew E minor down here, and then you played A major right here, it may or may not change the feel, but what it is changing is the register. And again, that's where fretboard freedom comes from, right? Is your availability of being able to move wherever you want and then play. So, and again, have a reason. Like if you want to come down here to play, and then you come up here, right? They sound subtly different because one is a little more like talking and one is a bit more like singing.
Mm-hmm. Jack actually says, when phrasing, do you imagine a conversation between more persons? I think the question is like between two people. When you're phrasing,
I can honestly say I don't really envision it that way, but that might be a really cool way to envision it. I envision it simply as like, I'm always thinking about what I call dynamic contrast. So I'm trying to, it's like a good movie or a good book. I'm trying to build and then bring it back down. It's like ebb and flow, right? Bring it up and then bring it down, and bring it up and bring it down. That's how I always think about it. Like good solos to me are always ones that build to excitement in some level. That doesn't mean fast. It doesn't mean loud. I don't know what it means. It just means they've got to build. So I'm always thinking about dynamic contrast, loud, soft, high, low, fast, slow, those kinds of things to try and make the solo sound a little more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good one. Andres says, I have trouble when the progression changes chords very fast, and therefore it sounds a bit like the same thing over and over. What do you suggest?
Say that one more time.
He's talking about fast chord changes, like the tune that you were just doing earlier.
Yep.
The backing track just had those two simple chords.
Yep.
And his question is basically what happens when you have a bunch of chord changes that happen fast.
Well, okay, there's two things that you could do. If the chord changes are happening quite quickly, it depends on what kind of solo you want. You might be responding to those. This is why you wind up with songs that have solos that are just really melodic. Like they're just constantly making a connection. It's not improv. It's not an improvisation, right? It's a structured idea. You're going to hate me for doing this, but achy breaky heart. Right? And I know that's awful, but it's just directly making a connection to the chord, and that's all it's doing. It's serving the song. When you have a lot of chord changes, sometimes you have to simply serve the song. The other thing that you could do with a lot of chord changes is you could bypass some of those chords and make it more spatial. So you're not concentrating on every single chord change. You're just picking the ones that seem like that need to be connected to. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when you play, you don't make constant connections, right? If I was playing this thing and I'm really in a zone, right? Let's say it's a little bit later in the song. So I'm doing something like this. And I'm going. To be honest, I'm still making a connection because I know those chords are happening and I can't get it out of my brain. But I'm just trying to jam, right? So if I was in the middle of a cool lick, there might be a chord change underneath there, and I'm still going to keep going. I'm not changing just because that chord changed. Mm-hmm. You see? The problem is if I never make that musical connection, it sounds like I don't really know what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
And that's the trap when it comes to people going, well, I just play by feel, or I just play by sound. We all play by feel and by sound. But that doesn't mean, I give the keys to my car to a 5-year-old and they just drive around by feel, right? They still have to understand the premise of driving a vehicle, right? They don't have to understand everything that a truck driver needs to understand, right? Or a pilot needs to understand. They don't need to understand all those things, but they need to understand the basics of how the car works and how to not get in an accident and what a stop sign is. And you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we all play with an element of feel, at least we should. That's what the creative bucket is for. But it's these other things that allow us to elevate the game a bit. So we're not just going... Right?
Yes.
We want to do more than that. There might not be anything wrong with that little thing. But if that's all I do for my solo, it probably isn't going to be very exciting for me or for anybody that's listening, you see?
That's right.
So.
And that's the whole point of this Essential Techniques course, by the way, guys, is once you have these foundational tools, like tools in a toolbox, these techniques that you have mastered, that's why we call them, that's why Steve called them the essential techniques for every guitarist. Once you have these essential techniques down, then you can go and be a much better country guitarist, classical guitarist,
right.
Reggae guitarist, jazz, metal, pop, rock, anything in between. But it doesn't make it, a bend is a bend is a bend. It doesn't matter what style of music you might be playing, you still have to be able to execute the bend properly with the proper technique. Okay. That's why this thing is called Essential Techniques. It's a universal course that regardless of what you're interested in or where you're at currently in your guitar playing, you can take. And once you master these things, you can go any direction you want. It's the analogy that Steve was giving about like probably people who learned how to fly jet airplanes first learned how to drive a lawnmower or a tractor or a or a car. You got to learn this stuff first before you can ascend to those other things.
Yeah, and that's really important to understand is that in my world, especially with teaching, it's not about whether you're the smartest or the fastest or if you love playing a certain style of music and you don't need modes or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, if you are happy with the way that you play right now, then you're perfect. You're fine, right? Everybody doesn't need to keep moving up the ladder. Everybody doesn't have OCD like I do, right? But what I'm saying is if you find that there's things that you don't like about your playing, it's okay to fix them. And there's a way, there's a method to being able to fix the problems that you might be having. But if you're I think about that all the time, like somebody that maybe doesn't know all of their scales or doesn't know all their theory and they're playing and just having fun and they're enjoying what they're doing, do they need to? Here's a story I always use, is I had this student once that used to come to me back in the 90s. He was a punk student. All he did was learn old school punk tunes, right? So almost everything was like 1-4-5 over and over and over. And I kept trying to interject to him, look, if I teach you a little bit of theory, you could learn all these songs on your own. And he's like, I don't want to learn theory. I just want to learn these songs and I want you to teach them to me. And he was perfectly happy with that methodology.
Right.
So what? Right? I mean, he enjoyed himself. That was the most important thing. But what I'm saying is if there are things that are missing, that's when you got to try and look and go, well, how do I break the eggshell and move forward, you know?
Yes. Love it. Let's take another quick one here. Vincent says, what is better, to think first and then do it, or only flow with the fretboard freely and play?
I don't think I can answer that. I think it's different because there are times where you're going to find yourself in a musical situation that's less comfortable than you're used to, and you're going to have to do some thinking.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if there's chords that are outside the key or it's a style that you're not used to, like somebody throws you a jazz tune or, you know, something with stacked chords that involves more than just a simple pentatonic, you might have to think more. It just kind of depends.
Doug Smith, and I think Doug's actually a student in the Facebook group for Essential Techniques. So thank you, Doug. Doug has a question, though. It's overlapping the major minor blues. Can you give an example of that?
Overlapping the major minor blues?
Scale, yeah. Yeah,
I got a really good one for you. If you've never seen me do this, then it probably won't be that exciting for you. But, well, I didn't mean to get rid of you.
No, go ahead.
But basically what you do is you take your minor pentatonic. Let me turn this off here. Okay, and then you take your major pentatonic. If you take that second position, what I call it, of major pentatonic, and you play that at the same time as the minor pentatonic, and what you do is you pick certain notes out of each one of those and play them together. So for instance, I could play, on the fourth string, I'm going to play 4-7, and then 5-6, and then 5-7, and then 5-8. And what I'm doing is I'm taking notes of the major and minor and I'm sticking them together. And you get that kind of sound. And you get this real cool kind of thing to your blues, you see? So there's some really cool ways that you can mix those together. See, when I was a kid, I always thought you played minor pentatonic. And again, I've seen other people say this, but my teacher said you play minor pentatonic over the 1 chord, and then you go to major pentatonic over the 4 chord. And like this was a written rule that he explained to me. So every time I would try to play blues, I'd play A minor pentatonic over A, and then when I go to the D, I'd go to A major pentatonic, never even thinking that I had an option of doing something else. And that's how I grew up thinking blues was played. And it wasn't until later that I learned that, like, you know, Clapton and Hendrix and Page and all these guys, it was the combination that made their blues sound the way it does.
So cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Byron says, is the caged system the best way to learn playing over chord changes?
It's a really good way. Now, the way I play caged, or the way I teach caged, is different than I know the way some other people teach caged. Like, I never learned caged as a scalular thing. I learned caged as a visualization of chords. So like C is here, C is here, C is here, and here, and here. I learned how to visualize it that way. That way, if I was playing and I wanted a C chord, I could visualize. And it worked for like comping, like when I would play stuff like that, right? I would do things where I could. So if I was playing in, well, let's just say an A major, right? I could comp over that A. So it helped a lot in learning how to see like arpeggios and different things like that. And I would use it a lot in church when I would comp over songs, like the other guitar player would be playing chords, and I would just be adding little fills. I'd be following those chords around in a cage sense.
Very cool. Leah Mansky has an awesome question. She says, "Hi, Steve. When I'm listening to a song or jam track, what do I do if I do not know what chord is being played at a particular time?"
Well, hopefully you'd know the key that you're in, right? Because sometimes we do find ourselves like in a situation where maybe you don't know everything. Let's say I go out to a club and somebody invites me up on stage and I have to play a song, and it's not really a song I'm very familiar with, right? So maybe I don't know every nuance of that song. And it happens, but at the very least, you need to know what key you're in. And here's where pentatonic shines. Pentatonic is always great when you have questions about what to do, right? If you're not exactly sure what you should be doing, pentatonic solves that problem because it eliminates the notes that can cause issues. So pentatonic is always a great backup scale. And again, by saying that, I don't mean I don't use it in the forefront, because I do. But when you're in a situation where you're not exactly sure, it's always great to default back to pentatonic until you've got time to go back and reassess and go, well, what am I going to do with that chord? Or what is that chord, right?
Right.
That's what practice is all about.
Sam Stamos asks a great question too. He says, "When creating a solo, how often do you feel like you're coming up with something that you've never heard before?" I'm sorry, I totally butchered that.
Okay.
When creating a solo, how often do you feel like you're coming up with something that you've already heard before? How do you get around that?
That's a tough one. It's really hard to
That's a good
come up with stuff
question.
that doesn't sound like something that's already out there. Here's the way I've always tried to explain it with songwriting, for instance, is that it isn't just the riff. Like if you find a riff that you like, you look at like, right, and then you've got like, right? They have the same riff, but they do different things. So it's sometimes it may start as an idea that sounds like something else, but in the long run, it goes to different places and does different things. It might be in a different key, it might be in a different tuning, all of these things. But then the next part that really makes all the difference is when you flip it on its side and you start building songs this way. The next guitar part, the bass part, the drum part, the vocal part, all of these things become something completely different. So it might have been a spark that came from an idea from a song, but it becomes all these other things as you build out this way, and certainly as you build this way, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. Someone just said, just joining. Guys, thank you for just joining. We're wrapping up here. So I want to make sure you guys know about some resources that we have for you so that you can get the absolute most value from the time that you spend with us. These workshops that we've done for you here, we're just wrapping up the fourth one. It's on creative soloing, and everything that we've talked about today and all these workshops is about essential techniques that you need to know as a guitar player in order to take your playing to any level you want, regardless of your particular style of music that you like. Steve has created a new course for you. It's called Essential Techniques. It's available right now at guitarzoom.com at the introductory price, which is ending soon. So if you'd like to check out that course and see if it's right for you, then just go to guitarzoom.com and click on that big banner at the top that says Essential Techniques, and then it'll take you over to the page where you can get the course if you want. There are a lot of fast action bonuses, and in fact, one of the fast action bonuses I just noticed is Caged Made Simple. So we had a bunch of people asking about caged chords and how they work. You get the course. You get Steve's Caged Made Simple course free as a bonus, as a fast action bonus, when you get this Essential Techniques course. Second thing I want to mention, all of these classes that we've done for you, all of these workshops will be available for you in a nice, tidy playlist on the GuitarZoom YouTube channel. So you can check that out. Just go to YouTube, type GuitarZoom. The channel will pop up for you. Click on playlist, and we'll put each new workshop on the Essential Techniques there for you, as well as in the Facebook group if you're over there on Facebook checking that out. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is we have a new membership called Play Songs, and it's all about songs. So if you're like, you know what, this technique stuff sounds amazing, but I'm just not ready for this, or I'm just not interested in this particular thing right now, I just want to get some songs under my belt, go to playsongs.com. Steve has an entire library of songs that we have licensed from the original bands and publishers and artists. A lot of them are tabbed out, and it's just an awesome way to learn a bunch of songs really fast. So if techniques is not your thing right now, you might want to check out playsongs.com. The last thing I wanted to mention, guys, is that we are doing one more of these sessions for you on Wednesday, October 21st, and they are at 10 a.m. Pacific, 12 Central. And I don't even know what the next topic is on, Steve. Do you?
Think, as I understand, I think it's all Q&A.
Oh, okay. So Wednesday is the big Q&A session. So come prepared with all your burning questions about technique, and we will just hammer out as many questions and answers as we possibly can. What else did you want to cover today?
Well, I think that's enough. Like I said, there's a lot that I went through. It's hard to go into detail of everything without, this is why I like to do like clinics and things like that, where you can sit and talk about this for 3 hours. But at least it's enough to get started and think about where everybody can think about where they are and how to connect to that and what they might need from there. So soloing, the only thing I would say is just don't think that soloing has to be the same as it is for the other person. Even if it's somebody that you love, somebody's playing style that you absolutely love, it doesn't mean it's going to convert to you. Take the stuff that makes the most sense to you, where you are right now when you're playing, and try and morph it. Because the one thing that I was trying to explain to people is if you're here and you want to get here, I think that's wonderful. But find a logical way to get there. You know, instead of always grabbing something where now you're not even practicing creative soloing anymore, you're practicing, you're back in rudimentary because you're practicing some new pattern or something, that's awesome. But it's taken you out of this bucket again. So the way to stay in this bucket is to take just small little elements and twist them and try and make those into something that's useful and sounds good to your ear and feels good to your heart. You know what I mean?
I do. Awesome stuff, Steve. As always, man, it's always a pleasure to be here with you. And guys, it's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. You guys are the reason that Steve and I are even here. And so we do appreciate your support. You guys are just the best. And thank you for your continued time and attention. And one of the greatest compliments that you can give is to share this with somebody you think might be able to get some use out of it. And also, if you're a member of GuitarZoom, then if you would like to share your experience with folks who have not decided to join us, that if you've had a good experience or even a bad experience, tell us about that and refer folks to the channels and to the website. That's the way we continue to be able to provide value for you. And it's just a cool thing that it's a big circle of love of giving and receiving. That's what we try to do here. So, Steve, anything else to add, my friend?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, I do too. Guys, we'll see you on Wednesday. Same time, same place, 10 o'clock Pacific time, October 21st for the final Essential Techniques workshop. Again, if you'd like to get the course, it's on sale right now at the introductory price with some really cool extras that you get just for signing up. That's available at guitarzoom.com, and the course is Essential Techniques by Steve Stine. Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Bye. See